Well, I think it's a real shame that those shops have disappeared, because I think that, is such a part of kind of English culture. And I'm from Manchester. My family, they used to have a corner shop, sweet shop, and it was great. You could pop to the corner shop, you get, everyone was friendly and everything, and they're all going. That's really sad. But High Street, I'm not crazy about High Street, but if there was one High Street shop that I choose, it would be American Apparel, because I liked how it started off so simple, and they've got the best women's, men's briefs, if that makes sense. Y fronts for women, great.
Do you know what, I can be a sucker for them, but I think it's dead sad that so many independent places have to close down because we are of this Starbucks generation or whatever. But I think the American Apparel is probably my favourite cloned shop, or whatever you want to call it, because it's not. I've never heard about any sweatshop things happening with that, and it's not it's good price. It's not as cheap as H&M, but it's decent, and it's good quality clothes. But I've never heard any any bad things about them like you have about Gap and about H&M and Primark and all the rest of it. But American Apparel is probably my favourite.
That's actually really interesting, because I don't know anything about it, and quite a few people we've spoken to have said actually that on balance American Apparel.
Yeah.
And I did actually a bit of research into it, and it turns out that when it started in North America, they were one of those chain high street stores. Everyone that works there gets a share of the profits.
Ah, that's boss.
Yeah, man. So it's
that's brilliant.
There's some little connection between what people perceive of it and what's actually going on.
That's really good. That's boss. It's right.
My favourite clone high street shop has got to be, I think it would have been the Gadget shop. I think they've closed down now. But yeah, it's a terrible thing. And something I've been making programmes about, and I've been doing these things called Disappearing London, and it's something I think a lot about. But I was reading in I think Portobello Road, they're trying to find a way of establishing the fact that not just buildings should be preserved in some way, that what goes on in those buildings could be preserved. The amount of money that gets spent saving country houses and, very beautiful palaces could maybe be rechanneled into keeping family businesses going. Because for 90% of the time I've seen these places close, and there are a million of them around here, that Camise is shutting here, the Italian place up there. It's not because the family don't want to do it anymore, it's because the costs have got too onerous, because there's so many other businesses like all these coffee shops pushing the lease price up, or making the landlords realise how much more they can get for their leases, that they just can't afford to do it anymore. So some way of, what they're talking about in Portobello is saying, yeah, you can buy this business, but you have to keep the business that was there. So obviously it's going to be very difficult for a mobile phone company to keep a cobblers going, for instance, although they may well be a load of old cobblers. So I think there's got to be something along those lines, because business is business, and obviously in the very truest sense of the word, all these family businesses have survived because they've been the best at what they are. But certainly in the last 5 years, in my lifetime, it's the speed of progress, if you want to call it such, has been so phenomenal. It's really out of control. And there's that great Homer Simpson sketch, isn't he, where he's walking down the high street and every shop is a Starbucks, and there's one that's for sale. He goes up to the end of the road, he walks back down, it's a Starbucks. But that is the way it's becoming, a homogenised big mess of rubbish.
Cinema. I don't have a favourite. I don't know. I think they're all equally as fucked as each other.
Which one do you shop at the most, though? There must be one that you use more than any other.
Do I use any high street chains? Yeah, I like coffee in it, so maybe I've bought the Starbucks and stuff before. But aside from the fact that they give you really big cups and you never know how many sugars to put in it, you're like, how many sugars do you put in a cup that big? I don't know. It's quite sad because it takes all the character out of your high street. You know what I mean? I do a lot of touring with my band and stuff, and you go down high streets in Britain and they all look exactly the same. You know what I mean? And I think the French have done a far better job of resisting that, and have kept kind of a lot more of their
The French have recently banned from protesting any advertising in public spaces and billboards and whatnot. Would you sort of back, and I plan to do that in this country,
to do what, sorry?
To ban any advertising, billboards, that sort of thing inside public places?
Yeah, I think so, because it gives certain things in the media an unfair advantage. For instance, I'm on an independent record label. If you're on a major, you sell more records, because you've got your billboards all over the place. You know what I mean? It gives an unfair competition to.
You don't have a choice, do you? If it's there, you have to see it.
It distorts the truth. That's what it does. It distorts the truth and makes people see things in a certain way. You know what I mean? Bar this, but effectively, you're just being sold the selling you turds, aren't they? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, I don't know, there don't seem to be much morality within that society, so it's a tough... I don't know, even magazines are beholden to like the companies that take up their advertising space. So, for instance, a music magazine would never criticise a band who advertises within its pages a lot, would it?
My favourite Clone House high street store. Do you know what? I don't really have one, to tell you the truth, and I really have got to a point now where I've kind of fallen out of love with the British high street. I find, and not, you know, I'd like most people, I can bang on about it, but the reality is that, you know, you spend a lot of money there. But I find there's just an enormous lack of imagination going on. I pop into Top Man occasionally and buy underwear. I think it's probably as far as I go on that one. There's an endorsement.
My favourite...
Your favourite Clone high street chain store?
I love them all. Anything that's kind of like, you know, cheap and nasty, that punishes the little man. Bring it on. I'm only joking. I don't really shop in high street stores.
Apple, yeah. Because I go.
Yeah, it's a pretty sad state of affairs that all of these small stores are disappearing. I think, you know, you can be kind of like, you can try and be really like high and mighty about these things. I do go in high street stores, and but having said that, I try, you know, I did sort of projects at college and stuff about like Nike and Gap and the sweatshops and all, you know, everyone knows, well, hopefully most people know that kind of shit that goes on, and it's really sad, and more people should try and shop independently. And I don't know, but it's hard. I go to, like, you know, for my food shopping, I've been to Tesco's, you know. Yeah. It's like shock horror, I'm sorry. But, you know, I try where possible to go to independent shops, and same with clothes shops, you know, when, you know, if everyone shops at, like, Topshop for every outfit, then everyone's going to end up looking the same, which I guess a lot of magazines would like. And but yeah, you know, it's a good thing to try and shop as individually as possible. And like, I know kind of places, vintage is very in at the moment, isn't it? And I guess rather than trying to look for a vintage replica, maybe people should like go to their local charity shop and like buy something that's really vintage. Maybe wash it a couple of times. You never know who's been in it.
Because some of that stuff's mine, you know.
Yeah, wash it 3 times then.
Clone High Street store, Waterstones.